So the question is, we're celebrating 2022. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada first met Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada 100 years ago. He gave him the instruction to preach in the West. For a lot of people still, there seems to be a thing in their mind that there's some difference between Srila Gurudeva and Srila Prabhupada. So without any, I really don't want to go into any criticism of anybody, and I don't want to talk down to anyone. I don't want to talk about what people are missing. I want to talk about how to harmonize. If you were explaining, if someone came along to you, let's say someone who'd come into ISKCON, come to Prabhupada's beautiful home, was very enthused. Then, in fact, I met someone recently like this, who'd then come across Gurudev's teachings and was kind of told that they're not the same. In a positive way, without any criticism, how would you reconcile, in a nice, simple way, Gurudev's teachings and Srila Prabhupada's teachings?
Srila Prabhupada is the cake and Gurudeva is the cherry on top of the cake.
You go first, Maharaja. Sajjan. Yep.
Jai Ho. Well, being a disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, it's very easy for me to answer this because in the years before I met my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, I had a pretty dedicated experience of Srila Prabhupada completely dominating my life and having a loving relationship based on serving him and his desires to spread his message, Lord Chaitanya's message, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's message throughout the whole world in a very broad way, and introducing these concepts of Eastern philosophy to a Western dominated world. And when I met, and he encouraged Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj to take up this task and to further delineate this whole process, which he had dedicated himself to. And I always see it as the postgraduate course that Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada introduced us to some of the basic courses of Krishna consciousness. And he wanted Srila Maharaj to continue not only the basis of which can never be given up, but he wanted to bring us into a higher level, which Srila Prabhupada wanted to give, but those of us, we're not sufficiently graduated in the basic concepts yet. And so gradually, as we began following those principles that Srila Prabhupada gave to introduce Krishna consciousness into the hearts of all the Westerners, then he wanted, after that was established, to pass the baton on, so to speak, to his successor, Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, to continue that process of nourishing what the ultimate goal is. And sometimes it's been spoken by my godbrothers and god sisters that Srila Prabhupada gave us, like Sanatana Goswami was the Acharya of Sambandha Tattva, our relationship with Krishna, etc. And Srila Bhakti Raksha, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, the Shiksha Guru of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, was giving us a lot more definition of Abhideya, the process actually of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. Sadhana Bhakti. And Srila Maharaj was that Acharya, like Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, to give Prayojan Tattva, the ultimate goal, which I was cut off, but the ultimate goal of sadhana bhakti is to ultimately the endeavors of the body, mind, and senses and heart to achieve the Nityasiddha Bhavasya, the Bhav, which is deeply in the hearts of all the associates of Radha and Krishna. That is our highest prayojan. So, and as Srila Maharaj said, there is a difference between Swami Maharaj, or your Prabhupada, and me. He has brown eyes and I have blue eyes. So some of these criticisms or misunderstandings that Srila Maharaj is giving something different is just that. It's just a misunderstanding of not a complete exposure to the moods and the teachings of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, which are completely non-different than Swami Prabhupada and all of our acharyas. He's given a great overview of Prabhupada's desires, as well as all Rupam Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Vishnacharya Thakur. Thank you so
Wonderful,
much.
Maharaj. Thank you. Wonderful. Who would like to add to Maharaj's answer? Shanta Maharaj, Haribol.
So one thing I've noticed is that when you go to Srila Prabhupada's books, all the books he has written, they are as rasic as anything. Prabhupada has everything in those books. The only thing is that because Prabhupada has realized that the people he has come to give this knowledge to were not prepared, so he a little bit diverted and was teaching the Vaidhi aspect for some time. But if you go into the books, all the books, you see that Prabhupada has all these things that Gurudev came to speak about. So they are actually not speaking on two different things. Prabhupada wasn't speaking on Vaidhi Bhakti because he couldn't give the Vaidhi Bhakti. But fortunately, he had created the jungle and planted the seed. So Gurudev had come to water that seed. That is the only difference, that, one came, cut the jungle, and one is watering that seed that Prabhupada has planted. So with this, if we do this, we can tell them that it is not different. So this personality who is asking this question can actually get the water of mercy from Gurudev without any fear.
That's nice. A vision came into my mind, Maharaj, of chapatis, You roll the chapati and then you cook the chapati. So if two people are doing that, you're both cooking chapatis, right?
Like Srila Narayana Maharaj and our Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada.
I think they actually did that together. They used
to,
I think they actually used to do that together.
Yeah, they did that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Maharaj. Beautiful. Mukunda Prabhu?
I think that was sufficiently answered, Yasodanandana Prabhu. Unless
Okay.
Russell wants to
That's you,
contribute.
Mohan?
There's another.
Like Maharajas both spoke, very nice. I think as people, a lot of it's by propaganda and creating othering, making it like to keep your own people with you effectively, you have to create propaganda against what is considered the other party. But this is actually a misunderstanding. They were complementary, and Srila Prabhupada established his worldwide society, opened hundreds of temples. He not only cleared the jungle, but he created the temples where those jungles were. And then Srila Gurudev assisted him when Gurudev was traveling in the West. I think there's a confusion between, Srila Prabhupada gave instructions about associating with certain other Vaishnavas, but he didn't speak that about Srila Gurudev. Gurudev was the one who he asked him to give him samadhi. Gurudev was the one who he spoke with and had hundreds of letters back and forth with. So I think partially it's a lack of understanding of the relationship, along with miscommunication as well as propaganda, things accumulated together to make it seem like, oh no, Gurudev is someone separate, Gurudev is a different mood. But when they actually understand the reality, it's not like that. And as Shanta Maharaj said, if we read in Srila Prabhupada's books, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam, it's very clear. His mood is established. And that's the same mood as our Srila Gurudev. Gurudev said, we're one in Siddhanta, one in heart. So really they're the same. They're complementary to each other. Like you said, in Radha Damodar, they would cook chapatis together. In Keshaji Gaudiya Math, they would cook chapatis together. Swami Prabhupada was one of the founding members of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, and he was a dear friend and sannyas disciple of Srila Bhakti Pragan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, dear friend of Srila Gurudev. Their relationship is, ironclad. And so anyone who doesn't understand that is, they're misinformed, or they haven't achieved that understanding as of yet, but really it's something that will evolve and be understood over time. So it's a mixture of many factors, but the future I think is very bright, and the young generations that are coming up want more harmony between different Vaishnava groups, and we are of one Chaitanya family. And so I think the future is very bright, and there's always speed bumps on the road in life, but I think we'll go forward into a very positive future together. Hare Krishna.
In England, we used to have an advertising campaign for mobile telephony called "The Future is Bright, the Future is Orange," which I think we need to adopt that for Krishna consciousness. That's perfect. That's wonderful. I have to say for myself, that complementary nature of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudeva is very, very prominent. Like when I first went to Vrindavan, '96 with Budara Prabhu, I immediately wanted Prabhupada as my guru. I felt his presence at his samadhi. I was like, I want him as my guru. And of course I couldn't, because Budara is not a Ritvik. Even as a Ritvik, I don't really understand Ritvik philosophy, but anyhow, it wasn't going to work. And so, but I always had this attachment to Prabhupada. So fortunately, within a month, I met Gurudev, and therefore my journey in Krishna consciousness has always been with Prabhupada and Gurudev simultaneously. And I've always felt that understanding one helps me understand the other. Having a relationship with Prabhupada helps me have a relationship with Gurudev, and vice versa. To have one without the other wouldn't make any sense. Prabhu?
If I could add one short note, something we've been talking about here in the Miami Akhanda Guru Tattva retreat, the importance of understanding Diksha and Shiksha Guru. And I think that's part of the misunderstanding between Gaudiya Math and, ISKCON and Gurudev. And something that the Srivakam Goswami Maharaj said, and something Vakhanas Maharaj, Sripad Vakhanas Maharaj speaks of very nicely. He was meeting with Srivakam Goswami Maharaj in Mathura, and he asked him a question about the difference between gurus and Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. And he said, they are one. Very emphatically, you should understand they are one. And Gurudev therefore said, one in Siddhanta, one in heart. Meaning, they're all serving the mission of Sri Krishna. It's Krishna's mission, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and our Sampradaya is unbroken disciplic succession. They are both in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So what is the confusion? Any confusion is due to material conditioning, a lack of proper maturity and understanding of Siddhanta, and propaganda, and unfortunate nature of Kali Yuga, which is to quarrel. So it's not all on one side, tit for tat, takes two to tango. So, ultimately, who starts it doesn't matter. The point is who has the bigger heart. Sometimes, you have to embrace your friends and your foes with open, loving hearts. And then you can break down these walls of aparad and anartha. So I think that's an important understanding of maturity, and understanding Diksha and Shiksha Guru, I think, is very important in the West. In India, we understand the teacher is a guru, mother is a guru, father is a guru. Who brings you to spiritual life is a guru. Diksha Guru is Mahabhagavat, very important. But Shiksha Guru is also an important role. And generally, devotees only consider primary focus on Diksha Guru. But Shiksha Guru can have equally important role in life without deviating from one's Diksha Guru. There's no question of deviation. They are both in the same Sampradaya. What is the confusion? Swami Prabhupada did not create a new Sampradaya. He created a worldwide society, hundreds of temples, an organization that was unprecedented in the world, and it was necessary and fulfilling the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he did not create a new Sampradaya.
I think just to add to that, before I hand over to Mukunda, you've also answered that. You've actually hidden another answer within that answer, because you have talked about the party and the anti-party too. And I think that there's a teaching for all of us in Kali Yuga of the importance of the anti-party, because in Kali Yuga there's a lot of competition because we're all envious. But what Krishna is doing is he's using our envy, our competitive envy, for our benefit. Because if we have an anti-party, it gives us the opportunity to perform two things. One, what I've witnessed is in every dispute, whether the anti-party is us and ISKCON, or the anti-party is within our own Sangha, it means that within your party, you have to go deeper into the philosophy in order to understand your own philosophy, and you have to understand the anti-party's point better in order to become richer in the rasa and the tattva. Secondly, if you really want to develop in bhakti, you have to find a voice whereby you're arguing the point and not becoming ad hominem, i.e. respecting the anti-party, treating them with dignity, and therefore not committing any offenses. And if you can do those two things, you're actually using the anti-party as your friend, and it's benefiting you and the Sangha. So I think there's another answer in there that is not just for Gurudeva and Prabhupada, but is generally the case. Mukunda Prabhu.
I think also when there's some maturation in understanding both bhakti itself in terms of bhakti siddhanta or bhakti tattva, and also some historical context, it becomes easier to see what is more of the influence of mundane things versus what is the pure line of conception. Historically, even during the time of Mahaprabhu, there were various opinions, differences. The sons of Advaita Acharya had difference of opinion. The big festival of Narottam Das at Ketri, many things were reconciled and resolved. There were many things during the time of Virachandra, the son of Nityananda Prabhu. So throughout the history of Vaishnavism, there's always been sort of variations and differences of opinion and so forth, both in the traditional parivars. In Gaudiya Math, of course, there was so many different things at the time of Ananta Vasudev and Sundarananda Vijayavinod, right? So there was always these kinds of things, so they're not unique or new. But if you rise above those variations and you look at the pure line of conception that has come from Mahaprabhu, on that platform, these things are pretty insignificant. I know during the course of traveling for Harikatha, I've spoken at so many different types of temples, and I have not run across a problem because, one, I have not entertained the idea I'm actually different Sangha, you're a different Sangha. I've only seen that we're the family of Mahaprabhu. This was one of Gurudev's instructions very early on. And those who may look at me perhaps with a different view, I don't entertain it by setting up the party, anti-party dynamic with them. But rather, if we come to the platform of Harikatha, people should naturally be inspired if they're sincere in bhakti. So I found that this has been, like the best bridge has been to just stay above that, stay in the consistency of the flow of Mahaprabhu's Vichardhara. And everybody who's sincere resonates with that. Those who are sincere aspirants, they also resonate with that. So wherever you are, wherever you're speaking, people won't look at Sangha dynamics or party dynamics as long as they're inspired by the Harikatha. So I think, and Srila Gurudev emphasized this. I remember many times in the very beginning, Srila Gurudev chastised devotees about creating party, anti-party dynamics in any way, form, or fashion. Don't distribute flyers at the ISKCON temple, don't do this. And vice versa, whenever Gurudev would meet ISKCON devotees, he would simply speak, what is the Vichardhara? If someone is insincere, then perhaps they cannot grasp. But anyone who was sincere, they didn't even leave ISKCON necessarily. I have many people right now, friends and everything, who are fully part of, quote, various sanghas, but they resonate on the level of, oh, this is nice, Harikatha, this is very insightful, let's come together and speak about these things. So I think that's the bridging element.
So there's one thing I want to just add a little. You can see that when Gurudev started the organization, many people came to him, senior devotees. And I was, I saw some of this myself, I was there. They wanted to create a new organization to rival. But what did Gurudev said? He said, I'm not here to create a new organization. The real organization is in your heart. So he says, I've come for your heart. So Gurudev resisted creating a new organization. And Mukunda Prabhu, Gurudev said, you be where you are, serving ISKCON, I will help you. Yeah. This is what Gurudev said.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So,
and you can see that happening all the time, because what's happening is, no organization is monolithic anyhow. And you can see Gurudev's mood and books and instructions. They're permeating the walls of ISKCON on a daily basis in a very sweet and loving way, not to undermine anything, but to nourish and to deepen.
Achuta Prabhu.
Bhagavati Kanta. No, what's it? No, Chuta next.
Yes, yes, yeah, sure. I can actually add a few things here too. So you actually, the few weeks back, I think there was one talk nicely given by again Gaur Sundar Prabhu. You may remember he was mentioning something he was giving an analogy about the same thing. So that is basically yesterday I was actually happened to be really talking about this very same topic what we are actually talking here too. So that is this is the one. The mirror of Vaiti Bhakti. Seemingly different, but why? Because the analogy he was giving was both Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada, they really came to build that same one temple of that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to build in the heart of the jivas. So in that process, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj could really had to of course clear the jungles and everything, all those things. I mean, he had to do the groundwork. It was very difficult there. So he wanted to give Raganuga Bhakti only, completely. But unfortunately, he had to really start from the foundation. In building the foundation, he had to really say, because there was not time. So that is why he had to come down first, because in the heart of all the people, there are only jungles. It had to be cut down. So he had to start with the very basic. But like, okay, you are not the body, you are the soul. That is why we had to start all the way. But that was not that he really came to give. So he said, Krishna is a supreme God. Of course, in Raga Vigave, our Gurudeva said, no, he is not. I came to tell you to forget that Krishna is a supreme. He is a supreme object of love. He is not even the God in Goloka Vrindavan. But again, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada said, Gopinatha means Krishna is the Lord of the gopis. But Gurudeva said, no, it really means Krishna is the worshipper of the gopis. And then Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada focused more on pushing them to Vaikunta. But Srila Gurudeva focused on Braja Bhakti and pushing them to really Goloka. But actually, both came from Goloka. They wanted to take everybody to this. All the books that A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada has written, same, exactly. It's the same wine in different bottles. But because of the situation that Srila Prabhupada had to really do, he was reflecting in the mirror of Vaiti Bhakti. That was the way he had to start with. So he had to build the foundation. Before the roof is really supposed to be put by our Gurudev. So even Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada had to say, yes, jivas can actually pass from Vaikuntha. You really go from there. Let X be, let this whatever equal to X. See, we do the algebra like that. So, okay, then you really go from the bottom, slowly you really go. So for the start with, they have to start somewhere. But our Gurudeva said, all right, that's good. But the thing is, actually, it's not in our Siddhanta. You have to really come up. And also, even Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaja, ISKCON, he himself refuted this publicly at the risk of losing membership in GBs even. Anyway, so that was a different story. So what I'm saying is, it is the very same thing that both really came to give, but one had to do the foundation work. So he has to do that. Then the second one came and they were complementary. But there, all the scriptures and everything, it is the same thing. That's my input.
Beautiful. Thank you. So we're reconciling in a positive way the teachings of Prabhupada and Gurudev. Achyutananda Prabhu, welcome, by the way. Please share your share your insights, Prabhu. I'm just going to put you on spotlight. 1 second. Okay. You don't get any like that, so you're streaming live.
Most of you know Prabhupada's presentation of Krishna consciousness after 68 and 1970. But I will tell you, in 66, in 26 Second Avenue, he was constantly speaking Madhurya, even teaching
Thank
us
you.
that Bhishma's arrow, in the middle of the battlefield, that Bhishma was stinging Krishna's body with his arrows, and Krishna felt it as the love bites of the gopis. He taught us that in the beginning. And even more so, there's even a little clip in the black and white movie, Hare Krishna, and Gargamuni says, well, we are all spiritually females. And Kirtananda said, well, that takes a long time to realize. But Prabhupada was telling us that, to identify with the Gopi Baba. And here's one more. There was a young girl who was coming regularly for months. And I was in the kitchen, I heard everything. She said, Swamiji, I fell down with a boy. And it's over a month. I might be pregnant. Now, what do you think Prabhupada said? You have broken one of the regulative principles. This boy must marry you according to Varnashram. No. He said, what? Between Krishna and the gopis, there was sex, but they never got pregnant. Identify with a Braja Gopi beyond this material, beyond this body. So that's all I heard.
Prabhu, you've told that story before, and I'm shocked as much this time as I was last time.
And
when he read Chaitanya Charitamrita, he described that Sripad Kirtan was identical to the Ras Leela, non-different than the Ras Leela. And we actually saw that broke down storefront to turn into Srivas Angan when we did Kirtan. He wanted us to wear Nupur. He wanted us to wear ankle belts. We didn't do that. We didn't go that far. He said, you can also dance with a...
Amazing. Thanks, Prabhu. That's beautiful. So,
Okay.
yeah, amazing. So, I hope you're in good health, Prabhu. He's gone. Okay, I'll take him off spot. So, okay, we've reached the end of the first question, and just a little summary before we move to the second question. So, in that answer, the question is, how do we reconcile in a positive way Srila Prabhupada's teachings with Gurudev's teachings? And some of the things beautifully explained were, well, Srila Prabhupada, Gurudev gave the postgraduate teachings that are already in Prabhupada's, but he was bringing them out because we weren't ready, or you weren't ready, I was not even born, we weren't ready at the time to understand the full teachings. And it's just a misunderstanding that's going on. And the Prabhupada planted the seed, and he cut the jungle, and Gurudev's come to water that seed. And that beautiful idea of Gurudev didn't even come to set up an organization, he came up to set up an organization in our hearts. And the fact that both personalities, acharyas, are totally complementary, and that a lot of the misunderstanding comes to a misunderstanding of the Diksha and Shiksha are non-different, that the teachings they have come with are same wine in different bottles, and that really the foundation has to be laid before the roof is built naturally, which is their respective roles. And then this beautiful idea of, if we understand the historical, I'll call it the ontological history, the pure history of an ontology of bhakti down the centuries, we can see very clearly what is the real consistency across all the acharyas, including Prabhupada and Gurudev. And the Chaitanya wonderful story at the end. So beautiful answer to that question. So our second question is, I'm going to quote something, and then I'll explain while I'm quoting it. It comes from Raganuga and Vaidhi in the Acharya Keshari, 5th part, the Siddhanta proclaimed by Srila Gurudev. So this is directly from Srila Gurudev. He said, if by extreme good fortune, the jivas attain the association with dear associates of Shri Gaur Sundar, then lobe for the mood of the residents of Braj must certainly be evoked. However, the sadhak should take shelter of Vaidhi Bhakti. Until such association is available, one will certainly enter into Rag Marg, by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The reason why I quote that is in the context of the fact that some of the things we're, not we personally, but in our Sangha, some of the things we're sometimes accused of is either making very high topics seem cheap, and sometimes we're criticized by being too free with this knowledge without there being enough caution. So to all of us in the Sangha, including me, like not necessarily new people, like me too, how would you, when you are talking to people, either new devotees or people who are not devotees yet, or ISKCON devotees who are showing an interest, how do you make sure that, because Gurudev got the balance perfectly correct. In the introductions to some of his highest books, he doesn't tell the whole story. He guards it sometimes, then he goes deeply into it if you get into the book itself. How do you make sure that that beautiful treasure, while it's distributed so mercifully, is also properly taken care of with some sobriety and some maturity? Mukunda Prabhu.
One thing is that it should be pretty clear that also our Srila Prabhupada did not really teach Vaidhi Bhakti. None of our acharyas in our line have really taught Vaidhi Bhakti. They prescribe that some vidhi has to be followed. That is different from teaching Vaidhi Bhakti. The gati of Vaidhi Bhakti is Vaikuntha. So we can't say Srila Prabhupada is teaching Vaidhi Bhakti. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's quoted Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, Sakale Jagate Mure Vaidhi Bhakti, Vaidhi Bhakti Brajabha, Vaiti Noi Sakti. So you can't teach something and have the opposite view. So this is called Raga Nuga Pravritti. It is the progressive path to following Rag Marg. And even in Rag Marg, Shravanam Kirtanandani, Vaidhi Bhakti Suranti too, there's the following of vidhi, right? Because if you don't follow any kind of rules and regulations, it's mentioned in Smriti Puranadi, Pantaratra Vidimira, Kantaki Hari Bhakti, Utpatyaiva Kalpate. So following vidhi doesn't mean following Vaidhi Bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized following vidhi, rules and regulations, because that's in Raganuga or in Vaidhi. So I just want to make that clear, first of all. In disseminating teachings about Raganuga Bhakti, they should be grounded. Rasik Mohan Prabhu brought up a very profound point in the beginning. They should have foundation. So you should know the Tattva Siddhant before describing anything to do with Rasvichar. Because if you begin to speak Rasvichar, like Ras Panchadhyay, Utkuri Kavalari, Vilap Kushmanjali, etc., but you don't understand the Rasa Siddhant, right? There's the possibility that not being able to explain that clearly will give misrepresentation of the Rasa Vichar. And also you'll find that those who don't really understand either clearly Tattva Siddhanta or Rasa Vichar, they will become fearful of dealing with it. So sometimes, like I remember, I'm just giving an example quickly to save time. There was one time a question asked, I heard one class, and one devotee asked, when are we eligible for Raganuga Bhakti? So the person who was answering the question gave such a intimidating answer. He did not explain first, what is Raganuga Bhakti? He didn't explain any kind of maturation to understanding Raganuga Bhakti. He simply attacked the idea of even asking the question, this is so high, this is this is that devotee now perhaps will have scars regarding approaching Raganuga Bhakti. So if that person had described siddhantically what is Rag, what is Ragatmik, what is Raganuga, what is the proper kram in coming to the stage of Raganuga, Raganuga starts in earnest in the stage of Ruchi, etc. If he had gone through that and then explained, that devotee would have been able to see clearly, where am I situated by Adhikar, where is Raganuga Bhakti, how to become more deeply immersed in my practice at this Adhikar to come. But now that devotee thinks, oh, this may not be a good thing. One devotee, he used to come sometimes, we used to just have Harikatha. His wife became apprehensive. We were talking about Sangha things earlier. She said, oh, I heard from one very senior devotee that those who are following Srila Narayan Maharaj, they emphasize Raganuga Bhakti. So my husband really, I don't want him to attend so much. So I asked her the question only, oh, Didi, what is Raganuga Bhakti? Crickets. So you develop apprehension about something and you don't even inquire what it is. Or you didn't ask the person who gave you the impressions to be apprehensive about it, what it was. So a lot of times this is part of the misunderstanding. So I think if we're able to present a foundational growth from Siddhanta to Rasavichar, people become clear what is what.
Beautiful. Can I just ask you a question on that? Just to reconcile something in my own mind. When I first came to Srila Gurudev, I'd literally just about learned the Mahamantra, okay? So I knew nothing about Tattva, really. Very, very new devotee. So Gurudev was emphasizing the goal of Manjari Bhav, Mahabhav, etc. And really at that time, I don't know what it did because I couldn't understand it intellectually because I had no intellectual framework. But it sounded, because it came from his lotus mouth, something incredibly delectable, incredibly extraordinary. It was not something I ever could relate to anyone else because it just went into the seed in my ears. And it kind of sat there for many, many years before I could really start exploring that rus. But it sat there waiting to be gestated, actually. So given that actually I had no foundation, but something was put in there early on, it allowed me to learn everything else in relation to that, even though I didn't really understand it at all. So could you comment on that? Because it seemingly contradicts what you said about foundation first, then ras afterwards, but maybe there's a reconciliation there because the goal was set.
Yes, because also Srila Gurudev is speaking at an audience. There's one verse of Rupa Goswami very important to understand. Praptana aduniki sanskar yashas chasti bhakti vasana. Everyone who came to Gurudev came with different bhakti vasana, means different sanskars. So Srila Gurudev, in his overall commission, was to establish the prayojan. At the same time, he was speaking to an audience of various sanskars. Everybody did not come with the same sanskar. So for some people, Gurudev used to literally say, I'm not speaking for all. And he used to tell some people, if something is spoken, you should put it in your file cabinet, like. Later on it will manifest. To other people, he's speaking to their particular sanskar and bhakti in that particular time.
Okay.
Because praktana sanskars, those sanskars you may have developed in previous lives by hearing Gurudev's, the first class I ever heard from Gurudev in '96, he asked, what time is it? Some devotee said it's, I think, 10:48. And Gurudev said, oh, what is Krishna doing now? Then Gurudev went to Ashtakaliya Lila. First class I heard.
Wow.
Understand? So, but it may have made an impression in my heart, impression in someone else's heart, all different levels. Understand?
Beautiful. Amazing. Very, very nice. Who else would like, hopefully you can remember the question. If you can't, I can repeat it. Maharaji.
Maharaj,
Oh,
you're
so
muted.
you're on mute, Maharaj.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for explaining thoroughly that Srila Prabhupada didn't come to give Vaidhi Bhakti, but his goal was also Raganuga Bhakti. But and then Mukunda Prabhu further delineated according to person's previous impressions what their capabilities were. I remember my first darshan and class that I heard from Srila Gurudev was from the nectar of instruction, and Upadeshamrita. He called it nectar of all advice, the essence of all advice. And listening to his discourse, I was seeing, because I had been cautioned not to go and hear from Srila Maharaj by the same persons that you're speaking of that had misunderstandings. And I thought, well, I've been a devotee for 30 years. I think if I hear something different from Srila Prabhupada, I'll leave. So when he was speaking on these verses, I was thinking, yes, this is so nice, and his moods, and there was a certain point where I developed some temporary doubts, because when he was speaking on like the 5th, 6th, and 7th verse of Upadeshamrita, I was thinking, wow, some of these concepts I'm seem a little bit foreign. So maybe this is what these devotees were talking about. But it was amazing because as I was thinking that, Gurudev asked Shamarani, who was present, my god sister, to read Srila Prabhupada's purports to Upadeshamrita. And exactly what he had spoken, which was actually very, higher levels of Raganuga Bhakti as given by our acharyas, was quoted in Srila Prabhupada's Upadeshamrita, and it was read by Shamarani, and it completely took all my doubts away. And this happened repeatedly, and maybe some of the other devotees on this panel can experience it. That Srila Gurudev, his gift to us was that he would bring out the deeper aspects of Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada's purports and his books, which gave this rasa vichara, this higher conception of Prayojan Tattva and Bhakti Ras, etc., and Gopi Bhav, Manjari Prem, Radhadasyam. It was in Prabhupada's book, but we couldn't see it because it was under lock and key. But the Acharya has the pure Vaishnava, Bhagavati has the key to unlock those deeper subject matters in those books, which we weren't seeing before. So this was very, very very monumental in Srila Maharaj's contribution to the Society of Devotees, to bring out these essences of what Swami Prabhupada's real intentions were. And he wanted us, as Achutananda said, he was giving these things very early on, but then he saw our disqualifications, and he began having to cut some jungle, so to speak. And then he asked Sri Maharaj to please continue this process. So they're the same wine, different bottles, or so to speak. And we're so fortunate to have that in our lives.
Thank you, Maharaj. Who would like to follow Maharaj? Shanta Maharaj, Haribol. You need to unmute as well.
So it's interesting. If we go to Madhurya Kadambini, and the way Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur had explained Srila Rupa Goswami's verse on the progression of Bhakti, and the way he has said it, he said that when the seed of Bhakti germinates, when it grows, 2 leaves are first noticed. But on the leaf, in the front, the topmost is what? Very smooth. And the down part is what? Rough. The rough side is, Vaidhi Bhakti. The smooth side is Raganuga Bhakti. So in essence, somebody will ask, when does Raganuga Bhakti start? It starts from the beginning. But if you have a Rasik Vaishnava who is having that knowledge and is giving it to you, then that Raganuga Bhakti becomes more desirous. So it is not that Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti start at different times. They are all there, but because most of us are not at that position, we are not even in the mode of goodness yet. Because we are not in the mode of goodness, we have been given some rules and regulations to follow. And those rules and regulations that we follow, they gradually bring us to the mode of goodness. And in that mode of goodness, then we can take off, doing devotional service. So, that mode of goodness, you can see it in most of all the religions. But in our case, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. Those 4 pillars have been given. And they say chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra always. So in this aspect, the desire to, have Raganuga Bhakti, it's actually desire. He said, wherever there is the verse Maharaja had quoted before, that wherever there is, somebody with that knowledge, with that, Vraj Prem is, and he's actually lecturing there, one should run there and at once purchase, that mood. And how do you purchase it? He said the price you pay is what? It is the greed, the lolium, the loba. So that greed actually purchases Raganuga Bhakti. But it is not that, it is not there. It is there, but it is not, how do you call it? It's not activated. Yes. Mukunda Maharaja, you want to say something on that?
Chutananda Prabhu wanted to mention something first. Unless Chutananda, I just want to
just bear with me. We've got about 4 or 5 more minutes, and we've still got Bhagavati Kanta and Rasik Mohan to speak. So
yes, he raised his hand up very earlier. So I just want to refine one thing just quickly. So sometimes it's mentioned from that verse that greed is only required for Raganuga Bhakti. But here it means the actual appearance of actual greed. The process is leading towards that. That's why it's called pravritti.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual greed arises tad tad bhavadi madire shuti dirapachite nasasastra yupingsha tal lobat utpatti lakshanam. The actual quality of lob, utpatti, arises in ruchi. That is the genuine article of greed. Prior to that, the notions for that greed may be there.
Maybe there, yes. That's what I'm
beginning, because the process is situated like that. So only that to refine it.
Thank you, Mukunda. Yeah. And by the way, if we don't have greed, then have greed for greed. Bhagavati Kanti or Rasik Mohan?
I can actually pass my minutes also to Rasik Mohan too, if you want. Yes, Prabhu? Please go ahead.
The thought that came to mind when this question was asked is, there's a reason the Gopi Bhav mantra is the sannyas mantra. Meaning, what does it take to achieve Gopi Bhav? It takes complete, absolute dedication to the achievement of that. And so sometimes we find when it's taken cheaply, it's that we're not one-pointed to Radha Dasya. We're not one-pointed to Krishna Prem. We're living our lives, not speaking for us, but not speaking for myself, I should say. But we don't want to take these things cheaply. And so to really develop in this, it takes completely Ananya Bhakti. And that's why Gurudev's most, you could say, what is Gurudev's most reoccurring theme? What is pure Bhakti? His society is called Pure Bhakti, his website, Pure Bhakti. And so if we want to achieve that, you have to develop the right for it, the qualification for it. And so I think that's an important point, that this thing, Gurudev said, it shouldn't be taken cheaply. Gurudev said, don't read this book. Don't read Gita Govinda. I've given this because otherwise it will be lost. Develop the qualification so we can understand that Gurudev is establishing a school. Like Srila Govinda Maharaj, like Srila Swami Prabhupada, it's a school. So in a school, there's many classes. So Gurudev also gave the ABCs, and he also gave all the primary classes, university classes, PhD classes. To your point, Yasodanandana Prabhu, you had that fortune of hearing from Gurudev that thing, but then you lived with Gurudev for so long, and then you heard everything else. Madhurya Kadambini does not start with Gopi Bhav. Bhagavad Gita Gurudev published does not start with Gopi Bhav. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Ujjvala, all these books Gurudev gave. Why did he publish 100 books? Because this is a very serious course of study. Spiritual life is not a cheap thing. It's not easy. And without Gurudev, we could say this could have become completely lost to the Sahajiyas. The Gaudiya Math time, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada was criticized, saying, you only chew the pit. We are drinking the ras. The Babajis were saying. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur firmly opposed this conception. And he established, and Gurudev is the successor in this tradition of this same line coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. Therefore, he established the rigorous doctrine of how to follow Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya to achieve this Gopi Bhav. To Mukunda Prabhu's point, we are not following Vaidhi Bhakti, but we're following this mood going towards Raga Bhakti with proper discipline. Raghunath Das Goswami, Vairagya Patanera Reka, his rules and regulation following was like lines in stone. So Gurudev also wanted us to be very serious like that. That's why we see he gave sannyas, he gave vanapras, he gave brahmacharya, and so many powerful grihastha followers, and very disciplined, serious approach is necessary to achieve this Radha Dasyam. It's not a whimsical thing. Otherwise, Gurudev, many times in Kartik, I remember he would say Gopi Bhav. Gopi means cauliflower. He said, you don't have Gopi Bhav, you have Gopi Bhav. You are Gopi Manjari, Begun Manjari. It's all cheap imitation. So this thing is such a high thing that we should take it on our head and offer pranam to it again and again, and then start our process of sadhana bhakti. Understand this as the PhD class and progress towards that. And in the meantime, we can relish this. When we're following sadhana 10, 15 years, 20 years, in school, you don't stay in the same class. Gurudev, I was reading yesterday, he said, don't stay in the same class, every day progress. So we read Jaiva Dharma, how quickly the devotees progress. Why aren't we progressing like that? Because there's some hole in our practice, Gurudev would say. Jaiva Dharma, wow, very quickly. They're going through the stages of bhakti. So this process doesn't have to take 20 lifetimes, one lifetime. But we have to be serious. So that's why I was just saying this idea. Gopi Bhav mantra is sannyas mantra for a reason. It's not when you take Harinam, you get Gopi Bhav mantra. Because it's a disciplined process. And it's something, you know, at the end of life, we sing, Shirupa Manjari Pada Se Mora Sampada. That's our aspiration. As we develop in bhakti, we can follow. But Gurudev gave everything. Everything was given by Srila Gurudev. And so naturally, this highest thing was also given. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We have Sripad Bhaktivedanta Maharaj waiting in Sao Paulo to speak.
But
Before we do, let's hear from Achutananda Prabhu.
Oh, okay. I'm on?
Yes, Prabhu. I'll just
Okay, real quick. The Ananda of Vaidhi Bhakti is especially following flawlessly the rules and procedures of mostly Archanam. Just like we know Haridas Thakur was cursed for not washing the Tulsi. But I had a private darshan of Sri Rangaji in South India, and I was standing next to a Sri Vaishnava, young man, and he said, oh, I love to see the universal Lord of the universe lying on the causal ocean. And I said, you know, Krishna dances with millions of gopis simultaneously. He says, that's nice, but look at Sri Rangaji controlling the universe. I didn't interfere. That was that's his
level.
That's nice.
Very well. Thank you so much, everybody. That was absolutely relishable. Thank you, Kanta, Shanta Maharaj, Mukunda Prabhu, Achutananda, spontaneously beautiful, Sajjan Maharaj, Rasik Mohan,